Hey guys, welcome back to ArtosisCasts. We are in the CNSL Season 6. Only a couple groups left to go in the round of 32. This is the beginning of Group H. Group H has 2 Terran and 2 Zerg players, as you can see in the bottom right of your screen. First up, we have Organ, aka Piano. I'll talk more about him in a second. We have Mihu over here as the blue Terran, and then our 2 Zerg players are going to be Saber and Spire. Okay, so talking about these two, this is a very exciting match. So basically, Mihu, you've seen a lot of his games on the channel. He is the closest out of all people who are not Korean to being an actual Korean-level pro gamer, right? He is the best Chinese player. He's a Terran player. He's by far the best Terran in the foreign scene. He's by a good margin, I think, the best overall player in the non-Korean scene, although there are, like, matchups that he certainly doesn't win. But he's very, very strong. Going up here against Organ. Organ is a very old school Terran player. He's been in ASL a bunch of times. He does a lot of commentary nowadays. Also still plays, you know, he's still super top tier. His style has a range to it. He's kind of like, I think of him as a brainy player. I feel like he plays more tempo-oriented, slightly lower econ. Like, you almost never see him go for just a straight macro game. Generally, he's going to have something either a little bit tricky or pressure-filled in his play. Mihu, on the other hand, has completely his own style. Very unit-heavy. Doesn't really hit any sort of upgrade timings or anything like that. But definitely is really fun to watch. He's one of my favorite players to watch currently. So, yeah, anyways, this should be an excellent Terran versus Terran game. We're on Neo Heartbreak Ridge, and this map, TVT, it's very positional. I mean, every map is kind of, but as you see Mihu kind of scouting, if we zoom out a little bit, there's lots of high ground strips. And if you control them with siege tanks, it's like incredibly hard to attack up, but there are multiple paths through the map. You can go through the 2 middle paths, right? You can go through the center. And also there's like this other high ground at the bottom and up at the top. So there's a lot of different paths that you could do, but it's actually a very thin map. If you like look at the mini map, it's like 92. I don't know exactly what these numbers mean, but like it's 128 wide by 92 high. So when you have something like that, anytime you don't have a full 128 by 128 map, and even sometimes when you do, Terran versus Terran can become a split map game relatively quickly. Somewhere it matters probably here, I would say around 150 supply. If you wanted to, you could completely cut the map off and no one could attack. So something like that could occur. But again, stylistically looking at these guys, Organ generally plays it, well, Mihu plays unit heavy, and then Organ plays almost a tempo oriented style. So I think that it's more likely that we'll see some fireworks. But honestly, if someone sieges up the center, it's probably pretty good against their opponent. Looking at their styles, right? If you're going to try to counter your opponent's style, that kind of a turtley strategy might be the way to go. Now, both sides going for command centers, factories going up. So just the standard factory expands. A little bit more gas being gathered here by Mihu. We'll see what he intends to do with that. And we'll see exactly when we're going to get some add-ons out there as well. You know, there's a lot of follow-ups to a factory expand in Terran vs. Terran. Currently, there's builds where you go 4 vultures off of your first factory before making an add-on. And there's everything from 0 to 4 that you make. And in fact, there are some builds where you even go beyond 4, and those will turn into Goliath play and just like heavy pressure. You know, you can go for a starport, you can go 3 factory vulture. If your opponent's going 3 factory vulture, you can go 4. If your opponent's going 4, you can go 5. Okay, honestly, there's a lot. You can go Goliath tank. It's not common. It's not that good. You don't get any sort of map control with that. You're like the people who do that are kind of noobs looking for quick wins, hoping that they can move through mines. Yeah, there are a lot of different ways to play it though, and we see here from Organ, he goes for the 4 vultures with no add-on that I was talking about before. See, he's a very smart player, very on top of the metagame. And goes for a 3 factory play, kind of spread out there, trying to maybe hide from that barracks what's going on. And as he goes across the map, you can see Mihu also here has gone for not just 4. He's going for more than 4 and the Goliath follow-up that I was describing before. right? So both these guys doing pretty meta builds. Like, this is a pretty popular build right now. Normally, this one follows up with a starport, but you don't necessarily have to. There's again, in Terran vs. Terran, there's a good amount of flexibility that can be had with the early openers, but you just have to kind of make sure, like, okay, let's make sure a Wraith can't kill me, right? Because, like, if a Wraith arrives at your base and you don't have any anti-air at all, like you haven't started your armory, you basically are dead. Because you lose, I forget the number, but it's like 9 SCVs before you can get a Goliath. So, yeah, you got to make sure that you're not going to die to Wraith. You got to make sure you're not going to die to Siege Tanks or Goliaths. You got to make sure you're not dying to Vultures, right? So it's kind of like, okay, I can do anything as long as I don't die. I know, I mean, that, I feel like I'm not explaining this correctly, okay? That sounds like any matchup, right? But no, it's a little bit different in TVT. TVT has the most flexibility as far as openers go. Because it really, like, you can almost make something up on the fly if you realize your opponent, like, let's say your opponent's playing a little bit careful. Like, this is semi-careful, right? This is a 3-fact Vulture. He did go for the 4 before Adam, but then he got a Siege Tank to kind of hedge a little bit, you know, to make sure he's safe. In fact, he's just kind of walking through the map. This is kind of funny. He might actually be looking for mines with this. I'm not even sure. But yeah, and because he made this, like, you have some options over here as Mihu. And in fact, Mihu has gone for a mines opener. This is actually a much older one. This is a couple years ago. This was a popular build where you go Vultures into Goliath plus mines. And the mines you just kind of lay out very defensively on your side of the map so that Siege Tanks may not approach you. And he's going to get him out, but it's a little bit late. Honestly, this is a pretty good position for Oregon right now. We actually have Mihu slightly higher as far as SCVs go. He's getting speed and he's getting siege mode, making tanks nonstop at the moment. Doesn't have enough Vultures to do much, right? So there's 14 Vultures against 7. Like, you have to be really careful because these don't have speed. These do have speed. So when you do an opener like this, and again, like I mentioned, a couple years ago, this was pretty popular. But nowadays, people don't like it as much. Like, you still see it sometimes. Like, Mihu's not stupid for doing this. But when you do this, you got to be careful. Because, look, Oregon runs in. He will dominate. If the Vultures actually fight, Oregon will win the game. Because you'll lose all your Vultures and he'll lose basically nothing. And then he'll be so far ahead. Like, look, even here, he's way ahead in Spy despite being down in SCVs. But that, again, is mostly Vultures. So, the mines are laid. Siege mode is almost here. A couple more factories coming up here for Mihu. Being very careful with everything. Oh, he actually gets hit by a mine there. He is just trying to make a little bit of a siege line here. Wants to make sure he's not completely trapped in his base. We need to see a scan. Yeah, the scans are about to go down. He should do a scan just to clear mines, most likely. These Vultures going out to the side. That's an interesting scan. Okay, so he's scanning to check where everything is and what's there. So takes out that SCV that's repairing the barracks. Honestly, he has enough units to move up and take over this position. I'm a little bit surprised he has not done that yet. Right now, Oregon is making a lot more tanks and setting them up. This is really the timing for Mihu to get up here and make sure he does not die. Okay, goes ahead, sieges. Uh-oh, he's getting surrounded quite a bit right now. Oregon doing a good job laying some mines around. If any of these mines hit the tanks, it's going to be bad news. Okay, one mine hits, and the other tank coming up, dealing some additional damage as well. Wow, this was fantastically done from Oregon. Now, the supplies go pretty even, but Oregon basically traded his Vultures out for siege tanks. So that's good, right? Like, Mihu had a big siege tank advantage, and now, not really any longer. In fact, he's got 2 add-ons against 3, which is this is kind of a common thing to do after the 3 factory Vultures, to go heavy siege tanks to catch up. And the fact that he was able to kill a bunch, Oregon continues to rally up his siege tanks. He's got good mines set up. Like, this is pretty solid play here from Oregon. Couple Vultures making their way over here from Mihu, looking to see, like, can we deny a third base, something like that. It has been started for Oregon in that corner. Mihu getting another command center going, continuing to produce off of his 4 factories. Not totally consistent with that. Has a very good SCV count, and trying to get up here to get rid of these siege tanks. It's kind of been a funny looking game, right? Like, there's been quite a few scuffles here. It feels like Oregon hasn't really sent that many siege tanks across the map. Like, I feel like maybe he skipped a couple in there, right? Like he had the add-ons, but didn't produce like 100% nonstop. Maybe he wanted to afford like his starport or the upgrade or something and got choked up on gas, something like that. Maybe a little bit of a supply block or something, because it feels like Oregon should have a couple more tanks than he does, honestly. Does get a good catch there. Now, let's take a look, right? Mihu has finally taken over this ridge. Now Oregon splitting this ridge, and he's got one here, which is kind of guarding this and kind of guarding this. Okay, so he's kind of splitting the map at the moment. He wants some map control right now. And every inch of the map matters in Terran vs. Terran, especially when you have a base like this. Terran vs. Terran is probably the only matchup where you really realistically see a base like this taken. Because let's say Oregon, like, reinforces the line for the next 20 minutes. I don't think it's going to be that long, guys. But if he does, and then he can take that base, that's like a game-winning moment, right? And, of course, if you can hold these, like, if you hold this line completely, then you're denying that base. So anytime you can deny ground, you can deny bases. That's a big deal in Terran vs. Terran. Now, Mihu adding a couple more factories here. Take a look. A drop ship is out. Ooh, actually a vulture drop could be really nice here. He has 2 tanks. We might see him try some sort of like elevator maneuver here. Siege is up there, drops a couple tanks into the main base. There are wraiths here, so Mihu's been making wraiths. This isn't going to work because we have almost no anti-air. There's 1 Goliath total. He doesn't even siege these tanks. Instead, just going to go ahead and kill off the science facility. That's actually a reasonable kill. Has the 1 Goliath in here. 3 wraiths. If he can get any damage on that Goliath from a siege tank, yeah, see that? This siege tank just hit it, so now he can kill the Goliath, and this is over. Something that small. 1 siege tank hit, and suddenly this drop not working out. It's killed a siege tank. It's killed a science facility. And it lost a drop ship, 3 tanks, a Goliath, and a vulture. So it turns out to not be that good from Oregon. It was a good idea, though. Another drop coming up and getting over here. Mihu doesn't really have anything in the area. Nice run by. Gonna lose a fair amount of SCVs. Looks like we're gonna have this just about tied as far as workers go after this harassment from Oregon. The wraiths coming out and kind of pushing everything back at the moment. Mihu just continuing that macro forward. Love to see it. Just such a sturdy style coming out of Mihu. Hitting his unit production, hitting his SCV production. Slowly, but, you know, surely moving out and making sure that he's not really contained anywhere. Yeah, it takes over this center area. And another big siege there from Oregon. 3 tanks here. Now, here's the thing. We're getting into the area where this is pretty split. Right, here's 1 containment, here's another containment. If Mihu grabs all of his units at once and hits one of these, he'll smash it. So you do have to be careful. You know, Oregon, like... where are the rest of his units? Okay, so he's going for some drop ships. We have more tanks coming out. He's actually only on 5 factories still. So not really throwing that macro forward as much as maybe he should. Mihu does decide to bring his units all together over here. Or actually, not all. If he had this group of vultures, it would be even cleaner. But he will get up here, laying a few mines, trying to bust through this siege tank line. And he is going to bust all of that there as well. All right, so Mihu is actually kind of methodically taking a reasonable lead. Now, that doesn't mean Oregon's dead. Oregon is a tricky player. He's actually loaded up 3 dropships here. He's making some turrets. There are wraiths and turrets here. A couple siege tanks as well. I don't think this is a good move. I think he's in some trouble with this, actually. Okay, drops this all off. Siege tank comes out. I feel like if you pull your SCVs, you pull a few units down here, you're cleaning this pretty quickly. As far as the wraiths go, he's got 4 over here. He is repairing them a bit. There are 2 Goliaths in there, so you have to be careful. One of the Goliaths has already taken massive damage. Yeah, it just is not doing that well. Flies in with the wraiths, and he'll be able to pick off everything else here. So, a pretty good cleanup there from Mihu. Oregon, in the meantime, he was trying to expand up here. Looks like Mihu has stopped that, putting down a bunch of missile turrets as well. Really spending his money a lot better, as you can see. I guess he's got the gas bank and he's got the mineral bank, so I shouldn't really completely say that. This can happen, actually, on maps where, you know, you have more minerals kind of early on. And then a lot of times you start building more into gas because you're, like, kind of addicted to making a bunch of vultures, and then you're not really spending your gas. So that's what we see from Mihu. Honestly, if he did something like threw down 2 starports, that could be like a good way to spend some money. Maybe adds more add-ons, something like that. See, he's going 4th add-on as I say that. He's realizing that, oh, geez, like I have way more gas than minerals. Definitely want to spend that. Gas units way better than vultures. As good as vultures can be, like when you start getting your economy looking like this, you definitely do want to get in to either more siege tanks, raids, you know, maybe some drop ships. Even adding in science vessels is fantastic in Terran vs. Terran. All right, so Mihu holding a bit more of the map. Honestly, looking at this game, like, Oregon still has chances. I don't want to, like, oversay it. He's got... This is incredibly important because it's allowing him to hold this base. And then he just needs to kind of hold on and hopefully not let Mihu take the center. The center is not something you're worrying about yet. Okay, this is not like a base you would take now. You'd wait till you have everything else to even think about taking it, because then you're going to be maxed out. You have, well, I guess Mihu is pretty close to max out, but he's heavy on Vulture. So it looks like he is going to go for another bust. This is the most important area of the map for Oregon. If Mihu busts this, he should be able to knock out, well, there's no base here, but that location and this base. And if he takes that bottom right base out, the game basically goes to Mihu. Like, he's going to be in a dominating position at this point. He is up a good 30 army supply right now. Oregon coming up. Looks like he has plenty of siege tanks and Goliaths to hold on to this area. +2 is done for Mihu. Almost done for Oregon. Kind of a fun game as far as TVT goes. Pretty consistent pushing through the map. Does look like it's slowing down just slightly as these guys turtle their positions a bit. And honestly, this is oftentimes a very smart and good thing to do. You know, especially if you have, like, if you think that you might be in a tough spot where your opponent could break you, just kind of reinforcing, then sieging is very smart. And then if you think you're ahead, reinforcing and sieging can be a good move as well. Kind of a funny thing. But yeah, I hope that you guys are still watching. I know it's a Terran vs. Terran and some people groan at that, but I think that this one's showing some coolness. One thing I want to tell a quick little story. The first time I ever heard about Oregon, he went by the ID Piano, right? Piano 333. And I mean, he still uses that sometimes. Anyways, Piano, like, there was a replay that leaked of him versus Boxer way back in the day, and Piano looked absolutely amazing. He was actually, a lot of people thought he was going to be like the next great Terran, and he never really quite measured up. That, I mean, he's very strong. He's a really good player. He's still around to this day. But yeah, never quite got to that level. I believe the game was on Luna. If anyone just is watching, just happens to have that Boxer versus Piano game on Luna from, like, I don't even know how long ago. It has to be 20 years ago at least. Probably more. Probably 21 years ago or so. 22 years ago even. Please send it to me. I would love to see that once again. Kind of nostalgic about the first time I saw this guy. Anyways, Mihu now taking the center. So this is going to put pressure on Oregon just having the additional base. Now, what do you do? Here are your choices, okay? There's 4 things that you can do when your opponent has an advantage like Mihu has. Number 1, make 1 million drop ships. That seems to be what he's doing. Number 2, just make full maxed units and try to break locations, okay? Number 3, go mass Wraith and try to break locations. And that's more of a tempo-oriented play. That can be very difficult to do if they already have turrets up. And number 5 is Battle Cruiser. Or number 4, or whatever number I was on. Okay, so those are the options. He has 6 drop ships, so it looks like that's going to be the play. Mihu's defense here, way too good. You can't drop there. You cannot drop there. This would be a terrible move. 6 drop ships is not. Mines, turrets, wraiths, tanks. You'll get absolutely demolished with that +2. Looks like he is sending some of his SCVs to die. This can be a common thing to free up more supply. And here he goes. He's going to send eBays in to suck up the turret hits. A great move here from Oregon as he flies over everything. Oh my god, this drop location is beautiful. What a move from Oregon. Gets past the missile turrets with the floating engineering bays. Siege is up in a beautiful location. He's going to get some factories. He's going to screw up rallying. He's going to get the science facility. This is incredibly annoying to have to deal with. Oh my gosh. In the meantime, Mihu is doing a counterattack here. He's sending his tanks up. Now, this is a strong location. Like I was talking about before, if you control this location, you control this base, you control this base. So he might kill 2 bases while Oregon is working on Mihu's main. Wild game right now. Wild game going on. Tons of missile turrets in here. He will be able to deal with that with the siege tanks. There's only 1 tank in here. Maybe the SCVs come out and try to fight. I would understand that. SCVs actually fight against siege tanks really well. Anyways, the Wraiths get absolutely bodied by these +3 Goliaths of Oregon. Looks like a good siege there from Mihu will help him to start picking off some of those Goliaths. His own dropship's coming up as well. This is so hard to clear. Like, you need a lot of tanks to clear this out. And you need to do it in, like, maybe 3 sieges. Whew. I do not envy his position there. Now, a couple dropships of tanks trying to come in here. He wants to reinforce this base. Obviously, as you get +2 attack, or in this case, +3, you don't need that many tanks to kind of hold on to one of these positions. Unfortunately, he lost 2 more. If he had 5 tanks sieged in a line here, that's going to hold on against, like, you know, probably 20 supply trying to come in. Right? So it's too bad he only has like 3. If you just grab another group as Mihu, you can punch in here and kill everything. Now, looks like Oregon going to send a bunch of his units up to take out another base of Mihu's. Mihu adding a lot of factories up here at 12 o'clock. Looks like he wants to remake that production. He knows he's losing a lot in his main base. What is this? He lost 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 factories, I believe. Something like that. And his science facility. Now he's going to lose this expansion as well. Oregon making the moves right now. Back at home, Oregon's still not that heavy on factories. But honestly, with the amount of damage you're both taking, doesn't matter that much. Sometimes that is something that factors into your macro. If you're taking a bunch of damage, trading out units constantly, that can occur where you don't need as many. Now, because Oregon split his units to kill this base, Mihu is finally able to clean this location. The dropships are going to mostly be picked off, or maybe all the way be picked off as they get out of here. And Mihu going to hold this position. So this is all we have left of Oregon's on Mihu's side of the map. So after that's been cleaned, the fact that he has this is all that's left. I mean, this is not fully mining, but it's okay. This is still safe for now. Okay, he's coming in to kill it. Killing this base puts Mihu, like, greatly in the lead. Like, winning. Yeah, this is starting to look very bad for Oregon. Oregon is getting some great connections there with his 1 siege tank. Meantime, we have some dropships actually infiltrating. It looks like he loses 1 on the way in. Trying to drop these tanks off. They're having a very hard time right now. Tanks come up from Mihu and siege. SCV's fighting as well. Just as long as he clears it, you can take a decent amount of damage. Oregon right now on 25 SCVs, by the way. I honestly think we're going to see a GG. It does look like Mihu's going to be able to take Oregon down here. Oregon has made some very strong moves, but it does feel like he's been behind for a little bit. Like, his initial contain didn't seem that strong. He definitely, his vultures did a good job at the beginning, maintaining that map control, but yeah, since then, it feels like Mihu has kind of out-macroed him as well. He added his factories a bit better and everything. He cleaned up the drops pretty well. And now trying to clean up the last few units that are in here as well. Gets an SCV on top of those tanks, continuing to kind of attack, move in here. I don't think those are quite in range. Yeah, didn't think so. Very efficient tanks. You got to hand him that. You got to hand him that. Now, Oregon has cleaned up almost everything in this bottom right area. So he's re-holding this. He has to get this expansion up if he wants to have a chance here, right? Because very little mining going on. Long distance mining, probably wants to relocate that. And then he needs this base. For Mihu, as you can see, this base hasn't been mining for a bit, but he is going to be able to take this up once again. pulling the command center back as he drops on top. This base making a huge difference as well, don't forget. Maybe, I mean, you might even be able to deny some patches like that, but there's 2 geysers. There's, even if you only get half the mineral patches or 1 geyser, it makes a gigantic, gigantic difference. Use macro just continuing to flow here, up 32 SCVs. A big drop off into the main base of Mihu. This might be the last-ditch effort here of Oregon. If you can kill someone's main, even if they're pretty well ahead of you, it's so valuable that oftentimes that will end up winning you the game. Like killing all the depots, the armories, right? The academy, starport, stuff like that, all the production facilities. It's really hard to rebuild that as Terran. You know, you have to get a bunch of SCVs to do it. The main bases are the only bases designed to have enough room for all that as well. But it looks like Mihu will be able to clean that up as well. And honestly, with Oregon, doesn't look like there's anything left. Like, he's mining here. Okay, he's remaking this. But if Mihu gathers his units together and attacks, he should be able to break any location he wants. He's just that far ahead in supply. Right, he's got like 60 more army supply right now than Oregon does. All right, starting to bring some units together. Maybe gonna group them over here. This would be a pretty easy breakable position. Of course, it's never super easy to break through siege tank lines in Terran versus Terran. But, you know, this is only 2 siege tanks. The Goliaths will do some work, but way too many units here. Mihu starts to siege. He is going to break through this, and I think that's about it. Oregon can't hold on anymore. He's not ever going to be able to clear this army. What a win. Our Chinese pro gamer taking down Oregon in the first game. They're like, yeah, there's literally nothing left. And I think it's just a matter of seconds here before, like, you can't, I mean, he's bringing literally the very last of his army up. This is it. That's it right there. He's got that, and then, like, this. And obviously you're not going to unsiege that and bring that down and be like, yeah, I still got this. But, yeah, that's going to be it. GG, Mihu to the winner's match.